These four frames of video are really the only visual evidence that's necessary to establish that this jet, which formed a dome of water vapor, was not created by the above ground shock wave from the explosion. It came from a different source. There's several ways that we know that. Um, First of all, is the shape of the shock wave. We can see the shape of the shock wave in the first frame. This is smoke being pushed out by the shock wave. Now the smoke doesn't keep traveling with the shock wave. The shock wave just goes through it and passes it, but it does form the shape of the shock wave. That's the edge of the shock wave right there. You can see how it's leaning out and then curving up into a big arc. In the next frame, we see this jet or formation of water vapor, and it's distinctly leaning in. Technically, this is the only frame needed to prove that this vapor was not formed by the shock wave. It's out in front of the shock wave. You got this shape and you got that shape. They don't match. Water vapor forms near the ground, as this does, from the shock wave. But when you see the edge of it, it conforms to the shape of the shock wave. This doesn't. It's leaning in towards the explosion. The dome that it creates is likewise still leaning in and has a very low dome to it. If that were created by the shock wave, it would be equal distance from the center of the explosion all the way around. It would be higher because the blast goes up as well as out. Over here you can still see the shape of the shock wave in the smoke. Now, something else to notice, we're going to go back one frame. This is the center of the explosion, and the shock wave at this point, because this is where the camera is focused, is coming directly at the camera. You can't see it here. Go back another frame. You can't see it. Now, watch right in here in the next frame, and you see little whiffs of vapor that looks like it's forming. It's very clear in the next frame. See that? The vapor is starting to form in the shock wave right here. It's just now starting to form. This has already developed into a big dome right here. And the vapor from the shock wave is just starting to form. Now we go to the next frame, and what happens? This is now occluded. The shock wave has accumulated more water molecules to vaporize, and now it's obscuring that mushroom shape, which is the center. So the shock wave is just now creating this water vapor well behind this. Okay, now something else to notice. Go to the dome. If this were the dome created by the shock wave, first of all, it would be taller because the blast goes up as well as out. It wouldn't be this shallow shape right here. Point number two, if this were the shock wave, the above ground shock wave is the fastest moving thing in an explosion. Above ground. This would not change shape. It would just continue to grow and maintain that shape because it's the shape of the shock wave. This doesn't do that. What happens in the next frame? The shock wave hits it and blasts this upper part out so that it forms more of a straight edge right here. Watch. Boom. You see what happened? The shock wave hit it, boom, and straightens it up. It changed shape. If that were the shape of the shock wave, it wouldn't change. We're seeing the edge of the shock wave out here now, almost straight up, and out here. And this original dome is now conforming to the shape of the shock wave. Just let it play a little bit. See how that dome gets hit and changes shape? That dome was not created by the shock wave. It's leaning in. The shock wave is leaning out. It's ahead of it. Now, there's one more thing. We also know from here that this shape of the original dome is definitely a solid column that's curved around this way. I'm exaggerating the curve, but it's, how do we know that? The sun is located up here somewhere, and this side of it is catching the sun. It's bright white, and then we gradually get darker as we move over here to where these two shapes join. Okay, so we know this is a round volume right here. And then over here on this shape that appeared, just suddenly when the vapor formed, it's shaded right here. That's the shadow from this dome. So we know that this is a round column shape. It gets bright over here, and that's the shadow from the dome. And this is the back side of the dome that has the shadow on it. Here's roughly the edge of the dome as it has straightened up. See how it straightened up from where it was? And this is the actual edge of the shock wave out here. So the dome is now conforming to this shape. Now there's something else we know. We know this is fact is established in my longer video. I give all the details of how this was figured out. But we know for fact that that original vapor appeared right in this area right here. We know that as fact. We also know now as fact that that vapor appeared ahead of the shock wave. The shock wave was in this vicinity right here when that dome of vapor appeared. So it could not have been made by the above ground shock wave. Interestingly, we have darker water here. Darker water usually means deeper water, and that sure looks deeper to me. Another thing to note is this kind of rim around it, as I'm tracing here with my cursor. Around this way, it appears to be sloping downward towards that deeper hole, and there's deeper water back in here. It's as if it blew out through here and up this way, underground. That's what it looks like. Now, I can't prove that, but I have proven that the dome vapor was located, it came up right here, and it was ahead of the shock wave. The very fact it's leaning in when it first comes out is really all the evidence you need. It's the wrong shape. It's not being created by the above ground shock wave. Thanks for watching.